Hello, everyone, and a very happy Valentine's Day to you all. Welcome to another episode of RPGs with Paddy. I'm Paddy. Today, we're going to be looking at the great supplement, Does Love Forgive? This video will look at the second scenario, Mask of Desire, but be sure to check out my video on the first scenario, Love You to Death. There are two one-shot scenarios included for Call of Cthulhu, and you can play with either the starter set or the Keeper rulebook. These great scenarios are based on love and desire, and they were originally written in Polish by Anna Maria Mazur and Irish Kaminska, and they were published by Black Monk Games. But Lynn Hardy, who's of course very famous in Chaosium, liked the scenario so much that she worked with the original authors to translate them into English. So Chaosium also interviewed Anna and Iris, and you can find the post of that interview on the Chaosium blog, which I will link to in the description. So both of these scenarios are one-to-one games, meaning there will be one keeper and one player. So it can be very intimate. In this video, I'll go through the extra considerations that you should have for such an intimate game, and then we will look at the second scenario, Mask of Desire. If you've already watched the first video, this is just the same information. I'm just going through it again in case anyone hasn't watched the first one. Okay, so because the games are one-on-one and it's dealing with love and romance and passion, it can be a little bit... You should take care before running the games. So first kind of read through the scenario and think about any problematic situations, and then have a discussion with your player. It really depends on what kind of experiences your player has had in real life, something that might be very sensitive for them to talk about. You don't want to kind of bring that up in the game, because in a group role-playing game, there's a little bit more freedom in it, but in a one-to-one, it's really personal, and you're kind of... the role-playing tends to be a lot more immersive because there's just two of you talking, basically. So also keep an eye on this as you're running the game, and just seeing if the player is becoming uncomfortable with anything. And what they say in the book is that the idea of the game is to have fun, and so to do that, you should also be respecting each other's wishes. So now we'll move on to the actual mechanics to consider. So in both of these games, the players are, of course, alone, but they do have some useful NPC contacts, and they can ask them for help or for extra knowledge as well. So there should always be someone who can help the investigator, but it might be for a price as well. And another thing they mention here is that you should probably use the additional rule, spending luck. So spending luck, if you don't know, is you can use your luck points to improve your dice roll. So for example, if you rolled a 35, but you needed a 30 to succeed, you could spend 5 points of luck. So your luck score goes down by 5, and then that dice roll goes down by 5 as well, getting you to a 30, which is now a success. You could also reduce it an additional 15, and your luck goes down 15, as an additional 15 as well, which would bring it down to a total score of 15, which would be a hard success. Or you could bring it down even further to a 6, and again, your luck goes down by the same number of points to make it an extreme success. And it can't be used when you're rolling sanity rolls or luck rolls or damage rolls. I think, as I mentioned in the previous video, I think it's good to include this in one-on-one scenarios because, there's only one person doing it, so that really they kind of only have one chance at it as well. So allowing them to use luck allows them to, have a little bit more control over the dice than just totally random. And especially if they haven't put any points into a certain skill and they just narrowly miss it, just a couple of points, just leaves them feeling a little bit less helpless in terms of dice. Of course, we're all helpless in the presence of any kind of mythos creature or mythos anything. So basically, that's all the background information you should know, and let's get stuck into the scenario. So this scenario kind of has a different take on love, and it focuses more on your desire and your goals rather than love. But love is also an important factor as well between some of the core characters here. So the scenario itself identifies two major themes are discovering your own identity and the price you are willing to pay to achieve your goal. This scenario takes place in New York in September 1932, and it says you can easily change the location or the time, provided the new location has a thriving jazz scene. And I think you could also move it to anywhere else as long as there is a thriving music scene. And then just there's a few references kind of to jazz here, but you can change them. I think this would work quite well as a modern day as well. I'm just trying to think if there's anything that would really be ruined by modern day technology. Maybe translation apps. Anyway, it's fine. I think you can pretty much use it at any time. So basically, in this scenario, the investigators will be accompanying their friends Lucas and Anna to a party at Madame de Tisson's apartment. And this is a party where the who's who of the music world gather. Anna is a budding singer, and she needs to get her face known among these people. She has an important audition the following day. So Madame de Tisson is also a collector of occult antiques, and Lucas is worried that a stage-shy Anna will ruin her big audition tomorrow, the following day. So he enters into a deal with Madame de Tisson. She gives him a special mask, which will allow the wearer to gain any physical or mental attributes they desire. And it also makes them desirable to other people. In return, Lucas, who is a lawyer, will help Madame de Tisson with some legal hurdles she has on importing and exporting some occult items, which maybe she wants to keep secret. But the mask also has its own cost for wearing, which we'll go into later. So the mask arrives the following morning. So after the party, the morning after the party, the mask arrives addressed to Lucas. But it turns out that other people are also looking for the mask. So we'll get into all of this now, but I'll just say this review is going to be longer than the Love You to Death review. It's not because the scenario is longer. It's just there's more details on other possible outcomes throughout the story. So it's going to be a longer review. But both of these really are probably one-shot scenarios. But that's all we'll get into for now. So let's start making our investigator. So when you're creating your character, you should start with the information in handout 1, which details your connection with Anna Conrad and Lucas Reston. So here is the sheet. Obviously, it has a lot of information, but just the key points here I'll give you. You love Anna's singing. She's generally shy, but not around you. So she'll talk your ear off about music theory, art, philosophy, anything like that. And you are confident that she could be a big star if she could just overcome her stage fright. Anna has a new manager or talent agent, Emily Webster, who was hired by Lucas Reston. So Lucas is kind of her manager. But Emily Webster, anyway, got an audition for Anna tomorrow. The big audition that she's having, with a famous violinist and an orchestra leader. But then before that, you, the investigator, Lucas and Anna, have to attend a party of Madame de Tisson's so that Anna's face will be known by the musical elite. Presumably you're coming along because you calm Anna and you bring out the best in her, really. Lucas is from a wealthy family and his life has been planned out from day one, always going to the best schools. I think he graduated from Harvard or Yale, and then he was going to join his father's law company. And you think he'll be a fine lawyer, but that his heart's not really into it, and he would be a much better artist. He has so far actually just about avoided actually joining his father's law firm, but it's definitely in the works. You gathered that Lucas has kind of managed to delay it by deciding to manage Anna's career as a singer, and that's kind of helped him delay officially becoming a lawyer in his father's law firm. So you, the investigator, Anna and Lucas all share a brownstone, so like an apartment building in New York City. And you have noticed that Lucas is very fond of Anna, but you're not sure if he's just vicariously trying to live his dreams through her, or if maybe there's a little bit of a more romantic attachment there. But you do know that Anna only sees him as a trusted friend, nothing romantic there. So, with that background in mind, it's now time to start making your investigator. And you can really do anything with them as long as it kind of makes sense with the backstory that you've just read. So, they can be any occupation, any gender, any sexual orientation. So, you're pretty much free to do whatever you want. But definitely the player and the keeper should spend a little bit of time here hashing out the nature of the the investigator's relationship with Anna and Lucas. Maybe the investigator is a sibling, a cousin, some kind of relation with one of them, or just friends, or they were classmates in school, childhood friends, university classmates, anything like that. Also think, is the investigator in love with Anna? Or maybe in love with Lucas, or neither, or both. And if so, does Anna know about it? Does Lucas know about it? For example, if you love Anna, does Lucas know that you love Anna? If you love Lucas, does Anna know about that? Or do they know about it themselves? So just kind of like hash out there what's good. So I will mention this again at the end, but I think the idea of this whole story, maybe the optimal role playing, is if the player has a little bit of romantic competition for Anna. So both Lucas and the investigator, male or female, both love Anna and they're both kind of vying for her heart. Although the scenario here does say, while the relationships between these three characters are at the heart of the unfolding adventure, and that's what kind of drives the narrative forward, it doesn't have to be romantic in nature if neither you nor the player want it to be. And of course I would agree with that if you're not comfortable with the romantic situation there, but I do think that that's probably how the scenario was written, with that intention, and I think it really makes the dramatic scenes more dramatically impactful if there is a little bit, it could be a bit of like friendly competition, or you both of you would maybe accept whatever happens or something, but I think that's maybe how the original scenario was probably written, I would guess. So other things to keep in mind when you're creating your character is that the investigator should probably be similar in age to Lucas and Anna, so that's mid-20s, and important skills are listen, psychology, spot hidden, stealth, and a social skill. Probably charm or persuade are a little bit better. And other skills that might come in handy would be things like appraise, language, Chinese, although I think most of it you would allow Japanese for that as well. Also occult and science, maybe chemistry or pharmacy. There are a lot of hard difficulty rolls here, so you have to roll half of your skill or lower. So it might be good to encourage your investigator to kind of put points relatively high into things. So the mask itself, the one that Lucas will get from Madame de Tisson, is connected with the cult of Hastur, the King in Yellow. And wearing the mask alone is not enough. The inside of the mask has to have a bit of the wearer's blood on it. Just a single drop is enough. When it is then activated, the wearer appears however they want to be seen, and this can change both their physical appearance, but also their personality and also their abilities. So, for example, like your stats, really, kind of. It is up to the keeper how much sanity this costs, but it's advised to use 1d6 sanity loss as a base, but change it depending on how drastic a change is. So if it's something like, changing just your eye color or something like that, probably the sanity would be lower there, maybe just 1. I think they recommend 1d3 for that. But if you're, turning yourself into a buff model or something like that, then maybe it'll be 1d10 loss or something, as it's a complete physical change. The effect lasts as long as the mask is worn. So as long as you don't take off the mask, you will stay that way. But once you remove the mask, you will revert to normal. The mask is also dynamic. So as you're wearing the mask, you can make additional changes to how you look or how your personality is or anything like that without kind of taking it off. But those changes will also incur more sanity loss. When you put on the mask, it merges with your face so as to become invisible, apart from just a small marks along the jawline, which kind of show that there's something there. The mask itself is addictive. You can remove it anytime you want. You just don't want to. You never want to. You actually need to pass a POW roll to remove it. And failing that POW roll will cost you 1d4 sanity because you're not able to get it off. You can keep trying to make POW rolls until you get it off, but every time you fail, you're going to lose sanity. After getting it off the first time, if you put it back on again, then the second time of taking it off is going to require a hard POW roll, and this time failure to get it off will cost 1d6 sanity. And so then, and again, you can try it multiple times. If you fail that hard POW roll, you lose 1d6 sanity. You can still try again with a hard POW roll. But let's say you get it off and you decide to put it on again. So for a third time. After this, and all subsequent times after this, so third, fourth, fifth, when you're trying to get it off, it will require an extreme POW roll to remove it. And if you fail that, you will lose 1d8 sanity every time. So this will keep going on until the wearer dies or goes permanently insane. And at either point of those things happening, the mask will fall off and it is ready for its next victim. And in between uses, the mask is calling to its current owner, user, whoever has like most recently used it, and it's calling to them, convincing them to put it on again. If you've only used it once, then it will require a POW roll to resist wearing it again. If you've already worn it twice, you will now need to succeed a hard POW roll. And if you've worn it more than that, every day you'll have to pass an extreme POW roll. So all of these rolls are daily rolls to try and, resist the urge to put it on today. But if you decide to keep just wearing the mask forever, extended exposure to it does also cause sanity loss. For every week wearing it, you will lose 1d4 sanity. Alternatively, the mask can be removed by force, but it's pretty bad for whoever's wearing it. It requires an extreme strength roll, and it will do 1d4 plus 4 damage to the wearer as the flesh is torn right off their face. This will trigger a sanity loss, and it will also leave permanent facial scarring, even with the best medical attention. If the wearer is willing for someone else, or is even trying themselves to remove it with strength, and the strength roll is failed, or if someone else is trying to get off, if the wearer is willing to have it removed, then a failed strength roll will cause them to lose more sanity as they realize that it is now stuck on their face. As to where the mask came from, for the purpose of the scenario, it will just start during the Japanese invasion of Manchuria, so 1930s. So a unit of Japan's army stumbled across the mask during the campaign, and one of the commanders was using it to help his side fighting, but at some point it was seized back by the Chinese, and it was kind of sent deeper and deeper into the country, and it passed through a series of merchants and occultists, but it ended up in Madame de Tisson's collection just before she gives it to Lucas. The Toko, the Japanese special police, have been following in its trail, and they don't want anyone with anti-Japanese sentiments to use it. And anti-Japanese sentiments are strong in America at the moment. But the Japanese also want to use it for their own offensives and also for domestic policy as well. So just before the scenario proper starts, we have a sidebar with some facts about masks in real life in general. It's nice and interesting, but not necessary for the scenario. But there are definitely connections to the themes of the scenario. We also get a rundown of the NPCs for this adventure, and similar to Love You to Death, we get a physical description, their traits, and their role-playing hooks for each character. And again, this is really, really helpful for a quick personality review. If they suddenly go somewhere you weren't expecting, you can just very, very quickly catch up on what that player's personality, what their approach to role-playing would be. So now, onto the scenario. So the investigator, Anna and Lucas, will arrive together at the party, and the door opens, and a little bit surprising to see Madame de Tisson answer the door herself, and she's in East Asian dress, a little bit of Japanese, a little bit of Chinese, and she is smoking what turns out to be opium. But she lets you in anyway, and the apartment has lots of antiques and art from Japan, China, and India, and also includes a large collection of masks. If the investigator, or Anna or Lucas, are interested in the masks, Madame de Tisson can tell them all about them, and there's a good list given in the scenario of some of the masks from all over the world, and then Madame de Tisson will ask the investigator which of them is their favorite. Your answer doesn't really matter, and she'll probably just smile and nod anyway. So after that, it's time to kind of mingle with the musicians, the artists, etc. in the party. And while this is going on, all the time it feels like the eye holes of the masks are watching you. They're not. It's just something unsettling to tell your players. So some notable guests at the party are Professor Ninart, and he is being blackmailed by the Toko, the Japanese special police, to try and get the mask back, basically, because he's a bit of an occultist. Emily Webster, who, if you remember, is Anna's agent / manager, and Mr. Tanaka, he is one of the Toko special police officers. Right now, he's without his bodyguards, but for the rest of the scenario, he'll be working closely with a lot of his henchmen anyway. So during the party, you can overhear Professor Ninart talking about secret societies in the Far East. And the goal of this is to introduce him as someone who's a bit of a sinologist, or specialist in China. So yeah, maybe throw on some extra things there, especially focusing on China. You want him to be known as a Chinese expert for later in the scenario. And also, around the same time, Mr. Tanaka can be heard arguing a little bit with Madame de Tisson about the Japanese invasion of Manchuria. With Madame de Tisson, she seems to support China in that particular offensive. After that, Emily, the agent, will gather a crowd of mostly men around Anna and encourages her to talk to them. Anna is kind of doing her best and being quite friendly, but a psychology roll from the investigator can reveal that she is very uncomfortable with this. And if you actually got a hard success on that, the investigator will also notice Lucas staring pretty intently at Anna. And now you're thinking maybe he's jealous of her interacting with other men. And of course, depending on the investigator's feelings towards Anna, they may be feeling the same jealousy. Or if the investigator is in love with Lucas, then they might be feeling a little bit of jealousy that way as well. So this is important, and it's something that I think doesn't have enough time to build up in the scenario, is just that love relation, or whatever relationship it is between the three there. But I'll go into that a little bit later anyway. So after a little bit of chatting, whenever you feel the time is right, a madman bursts into the party with wild eyes, crazy hair, and he's got a long knife, and he's screaming, "It's speaking to me! It won't stop speaking to me!" So the investigator might try to tackle or subdue the madman, or they might want to try protecting Anna, or potentially Lucas as well. The madman is mad and doesn't have great coordination, and he can be pretty easily taken down. So any kind of combat or fighting maneuver, anything like that, you will get a bonus die when you're trying that. If you are close to the man, so if you actually, tackle him or something like that, you get to roll a spot hidden. And if you get a hard success, you can actually notice some faint marks around the jawbone, suggesting he may be wearing a mask of some sort. I'm starting to think, I keep pointing here, but I think it might actually be closer to here, where maybe the mask would end to the bottom of your face there. Fairly minor detail anyway. So the madman might be trying to kill Madame de Tisson or just force her to take back the mask. It's kind of up to the keeper. Don't say anything too revealing about this, but you could say something. Or you could just say nothing as well. If the investigator does nothing, the madman will start lashing out at people, anyone who tries to come near him, causing some, nasty cuts. If the investigator did not say that they are actively protecting Anna, then as he's kind of like looking around the room, the madman will fixate on Anna and he will try to take her hostage with a knife to her throat. Of course, because she has a big singing audition tomorrow, any injury, even if it's minor, could ruin her big chance. So at this stage, if the investigator is still doing nothing, which I doubt, especially in a one-to-one scenario, but if that happens, then Madame de Tisson will step in with a firm but calm voice that relaxes the madman. And there's a couple of checks I think that you can make to see if this, to know that this is some kind of charm magic that she's using. But anyway, he will drop his weapon at this stage. Then she will kind of calmly lead him into the bedroom and close the doors. Or equally, if he was knocked out or incapacitated or something like that, she will have him brought into her bedroom. And then she tells everyone to continue enjoying the party and she will return presently after dealing with the man. Basically, she needs to go in and remove the mask from him. And we'll get to that a little bit later as well. So a few minutes later, she comes out saying he's just going to sleep it off and she apologizes for that. And then she starts mingling with her guests again. After a while, the investigator can notice that she starts talking to Lucas. And you can try and listen in on what's happening here. You can either have a hard listen roll from afar, or you can try and get closer, requiring a stealth roll. But if the stealth roll is failed, then the Tisson notices and kind of scowls at you and brings Lucas into another room, closing the door for privacy. If you overhear the conversation, Madame de Tisson says she can help Lucas with his problem in exchange for legal favors. He should expect a parcel tomorrow. So soon after this, Madame de Tisson kind of, feigns tipsiness, or maybe she is a little bit tipsy as well, and she declares that the party is over. After this, the investigators may wish to speak to Lucas about what they overheard, but Lucas would be pretty annoyed if the investigator says they were eavesdropping and just insists that they have to trust him and he only has everyone's best interests at heart. So that's the first major scene anyway. The next morning, a package will arrive and a psychology roll reveals that the delivery boy is pretty shaken. And if you ask him about it, he will say that a filthy bum stopped him and demanded to know what was in the package and actually tried to steal it from him. But the boy managed to get away. If the investigator asks, where was this? The boy says, I was just on this street, and he kind of points down there, and the investigator can look out and can actually spot the vagrant with a spot hidden roll. At this point, he will notice he's been spotted and he will then disappear from view. This was one of Mr. Tanaka's henchmen disguised as a bum. So remember, these are the Japanese special police force who are trying to get the mask back to presumably use again in the Manchuria offensive. So at this stage, Lucas and Anna are not at home at the moment. Anna has gone for a long walk to clear her head before, her big audition. And Lucas has gone to his father's law firm. And the investigator learns of both of these in the forms of notes left for him or her. So the investigator doesn't have the option to go along with them. After a little bit, the house cleaner, Mrs. Lennox, arrives and makes small talk with the investigator. And she says that she saw a hobo loitering around, kind of like their basement entrance. But she got rid of him by threatening to call the police. And if the investigator goes out to check, the vagrant is long gone now. So now it comes down to, what does the player want to do with the package? Do they want to open it, or do they want to just wait for Lucas to get back? If they decide to open it, you should ask for a luck roll. So there are a lot of options here depending on what you do, and each of them are spelled out in quite some detail. So that's probably why that is why this review is a little bit longer than others. So if you opened it and you succeeded in your luck roll, you get to examine the box without interruption. And inside it, you can find a wooden box tied with a red silk ribbon. And there are some Chinese characters on the box and a pencil-written note in English, which reads, "The parcel from China." Then inside that box is a piece of paper with more Chinese characters, a short letter in English, and a white porcelain mask wrapped in violet silk. The Chinese characters look like this. And the letter in English reads, It is best to make decisions quickly. You have until tonight. The price is high, but it's worth it." And it's signed P. The mask itself has half-closed eyes, thin lips, which are half open, revealing black teeth inside. The inside of the mask, so kind of like not the face side, the inside of it, is coarse and a little bit sticky. And there is also a symbol scrawled on the inside, another Chinese character, and you'll find out later it's the symbol for blood. So if the investigators succeed at a language roll of Chinese, but again, as they explain later, Japanese would also be fine, but probably they have Chinese for the sake of this. If they succeed in that anyway, give them handouts 6, 7, and 8, which are translations of the Chinese. It doesn't spell out anything too much, but it just gives you kind of vague ideas of them, so I'll just pop them up here. So at this stage, the investigator may think to ask the sinologist from the party, so Professor Nienart, or ask Madame de Tisson about that, or they can wait for Lucas to return home and challenge him on it. So alternatively, if they failed the luck roll, so they decided to open the box but they failed the luck roll, they still get to open up the stuff and go through it, but Lucas will come home early and interrupt them as they're looking through it. And he is furious at them for opening his package. A huge invasion of privacy and trust. On the other hand, if the investigator waits for Lucas to come home, they don't open it, and he will snatch it from them and go straight into his room. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to show them what it is. So whatever has happened up until now, Anna will arrive home just in time to witness any confrontation between Lucas and the investigator. She's pretty horrified and confused. But she does know that Lucas has been stressed out lately, and she wonders if it's because of the parcel. So the investigator might want to follow Lucas up to his room now, but he will refuse entry to it. If you decide to barge in anyway, you can see Lucas with the mask in hand, but he kind of tries to hide it while yelling at the investigator to get out. Lucas can be convinced to explain what's going on, but you need a hard social skill roll. So charm or persuade are probably the best, but intimidate would probably work as well. If you're trying to do this through the door, so you haven't already burst in, then apply a penalty die to your social skill, and it's still hard. If you are successful in your roll, Lucas says Madame de Tisson sent the masks to help Anna with the audition, but he won't explain further how it would help. But if you managed an extreme success on your social skill roll, he will reveal that the mask gives the wearer their heart's desire. He claims that he only wants what's best for Anna, and just to help her kind of overcome her stage fright. So if the investigator tries to convince Lucas to return it to Madame de Tisson, and this could be because the investigator doesn't believe it'll work, because they think it's dangerous, or just because they believe in Anna. So especially if the investigator, loves Anna, that can kind of be a big point there as well. But if they're trying to convince Lucas to do this, it will require another hard social skill roll. And if successful, he will ask the investigator to go with him. If the roll is failed, then Lucas will try putting on the mask himself. And the investigator has 2 rounds to try and stop him. So the first round, he needs to kind of prick his finger or something like that to get some blood in. And then the second round, it will be to put the mask on. If the investigator manages to stop him, he will calm down. But the relationship between Lucas and the investigator is now really strained. The investigator then, with the mask, can, probably return it to Madame de Tisson if they want. If Lucas manages to get the mask on, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, we'll look at if you want to talk to Professor Nienart. And this is like an optional scene depending on if the player thinks about it or wants to do it. So in this case, you'll go and visit Professor Nienart. Maybe you talked to him, or maybe you got his address at the party, or you just overheard that he was a Chinese expert. But he is eager to help, and if the players have the mask or any of the notes, then he seems quite worried as well. The box, if they have it, is from China, but the mask is Japanese, is a No mask, Noh, which is a kind of theater here. There's a little bit of background about the Chinese-Japanese language connection, because Japanese uses Chinese characters, so that's why I said a Japanese language roll would also succeed. If the investigators haven't already translated the documents, Professor Nienart can do it here. Which will provide the players with the previous handouts that they would have got if they translated, 6, 7, and 8. But they would only get the ones relevant to what they brought with them. So if they only brought the mask, they'll only see the symbol inside the mask, which is a symbol for blood. But if they brought all the notes as well, they'll get them translated. So during this, a hard psychology roll, and you can see there's so many hard rolls that you need to make here. But a hard psychology roll reveals that Nienart is scared and is hiding something. And to find out what it is, he will only confide in you if you succeed in a hard social skill roll. So another hard roll here. Probably, again, you need to use charm or persuade, and probably not intimidate, because he's more afraid of Mr. Tanaka. He says the Japanese really want this, and they've threatened to hurt his family if he doesn't help them. So the investigators could the investigator, because there's only one, could decide at this point to leave the mask with the professor, or they could decide to bring it back to Madame de Tisson to kind of just remove themselves from the whole mess, so they're not getting involved in anything controversial with the Japanese. Whatever happens, Nienart will tell Tanaka about everything as soon as the investigator leaves. If he has the mask at this stage, he will hand it over to Tanaka. So, alternatively, if you go to Madame de Tisson immediately after receiving the parcel, you still have a chance to talk to her. If not, she'll be dead. We'll get to that in a little bit. In that case, she will invite the investigators in. She is reluctant to reveal too much, but will give some information, kind of depending on how much the investigator already knows and how hard the investigator kind of pushes back on her, false statements. But this is basically the information she will give. The package was a present to Lucas, so it would be very rude to return it. The mask is a Japanese No mask. And in the No theater, the No mask, or this mask anyway, is worn by the lead actor. She can't read the characters on the paper herself, and that's true, I think. But she says that a translator told her it was just to verify the item's authenticity. That, however, is a lie, and another hard psychology roll will reveal that it's a lie. She says as well that the box is newer than the mask, which kind of reduces its price on the antiques market. And that actually is true. I think another psychology roll will reveal that that's actually true. But above all of that, if you make a hard social skill roll, either through charm or fast talk or persuade, then she will also reveal the following. She knows that the mask is said to have supernatural powers, and she knows how it works, and she says Lucas also knows how it works. It doesn't say in the scenario here if she tells the investigator how it works or what it's supposed to do, but I think you can probably tell them at this stage if they haven't already heard it from Lucas. I think they're the two main ways that you would find out how it works. Another thing that she would reveal if you succeeded the hard social skill is that she knows personally that she is very easily addicted to things, so she wants to remove the temptation of having the mask around, and that's why she was so happy to give it to Lucas. She knew about Anna's stage fright and knew about Lucas was kind of worried about that. So she approached Lucas, Madame de Tisson approached Lucas knowing that he would take the mask off her hands. So if you didn't go to Madame de Tisson's immediately, if you delayed for any reason to talk to Lucas or to go to Nienart or anything like that, if you call ahead, she won't answer her phone. And if you go there in person, her front door is wide open with the apartment in disarray. Notably, every single mask has been knocked to the floor and most of them are smashed. Further, the Tisson's body is found in her bedroom and she has been stabbed and is dead. It is possible, depending on how the story is going, if you think the investigators haven't got enough information or possibly won't, you can have Madame de Tisson say something to the investigator with her last breath. And this can be whatever you think is necessary to kind of move the investigation along. It could be to direct them to Professor Nienart. It could be to warn them about Mr. Tanaka. It could even be warning them about the mask itself. Another alternative is for them to arrive while Tanaka's men are still here. And in that case, there might even be a chance of saving Madame de Tisson. You can also play this if the investigators successfully talked to her, so they came directly there, they had their breakfast conversation, and then as the player is about to leave, the investigator is about to leave, that's when the Tanaka's henchman confrontation starts. So they might be there for that stage. But it recommends in the book, and I definitely agree, only do this if you've got a very combat-oriented investigator. Because in a one-to-one game, if one of your players, or if the investigator dies, that's kind of the end of the scenario as well. So, yeah, I would probably avoid this, especially because there's such a unique connection between the three main characters. A replacement investigator wouldn't do very well, and even if you decide to knock them out or something like that, or take them captive, you know, the big climax of this really is at the audition tonight. So yeah, I might avoid that unless you want to play it easily. Anyway, if neither of these options happen, and if Lucas doesn't know about the investigator taking his mask, he will now arrive. So, for example, if the investigators went to Professor Nienart and then went to Madame de Tisson's without talking to Lucas, then Lucas will come over to Madame de Tisson's house saying, hey, you know, you said you were going to send over the mask. Where is it? At this stage, he will be furious at the investigator and try to grab the mask from them if they have it at the moment. So, looking around the apartment more, you can also find the body of the madman from last night, unless he was actually killed in the scuffle. If he was killed in the scuffle, the mask would have come off at that stage. And, you know, that could be something you might notice that. And if that happens also, there should be some kind of change that happens to the madman as well. So once if he dies, then the mask kind of falls off and possibly clatters to the floor. But then something physical about him should change as well. And it could be kind of, it could be a little bit subtle, as if the investigators is like, is that really different? Or something like that. Kind of that uneasiness, like you say, the rest of the night it looks like the eye holes of the masks are watching you. That's not happening. So it gives them that little bit of paranoia. Anyway, if he didn't die during that and he was just brought into Madame de Tussauds bedroom, then while she was taking care of him, she was, taking off his mask. And that means forcing it off. And that involves ripping off his face. So now he is dead. And you can find his faceless body hidden in a trunk in her apartment. And there's not a huge amount to do about that. But at this stage, or kind of any stage up till now, if the investigator decides to call the police, then the investigator will be brought in for interviews. And how they are treated by the police will depend on their occupation and their credit rating. But if they think about it, they can also call Lucas, who is a lawyer, who can come and help them. If that happens, then Lucas will arrange for them to be released without charge for now. But the mask may be confiscated as evidence if the investigator has it at the time, and if the police know about the connection between the mask and the murders. Not believing in anything supernatural, but just saying some people were killed because of this mask. If the investigators mention Tanaka, the police will go after him for the murder. And remember, there's a lot of anti-Japanese sentiment in America at the moment. But do be careful about playing this if it's something your player might be sensitive about. So now, after all of that, we get to the final scene, which is the audition. There are many, many different things that have happened here, but now we need to focus on Anna's audition. And this is why it's very important that you have a strong relationship, and possibly romantic relationship, with Anna. You want to do what's best for her, basically. So when you get there, anyway, there are lots of other people auditioning for various parts, and there's a lot of excitement and tension in the air. And if Tanaka hasn't been dealt with in some way, he will probably turn up during this, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But there are multiple different endings depending what has happened up until now. If Lucas has already put on the mask at some point before the audition, he wants to use the mask to win Anna's heart. But this will probably distract her and possibly ruin her audition. So she's so distracted while she sings. She usually has a skill of 75% in singing. But have the player roll that skill with a penalty die because she can't focus. If she still succeeds, she is hired to go on tour with Nancy Turner, which is great for her. Then have the player make a luck roll. If the luck roll fails, Anna believes that Lucas was acting weird to kind of distract her and take away her attention from her stage fright, and that's why she performed so well. So that leads to them starting a romance. If the luck roll was successful, then the relationship between Anna and Lucas becomes strained, as she can't kind of understand why he was acting so weirdly. And instead she kind of turns her affection towards the investigator. And if the investigator likes that, that's one thing, or maybe doesn't want that as well. But again, that's the thing. If she, however, failed her singing role, she is devastated. Again, make a luck roll, and if you fail the luck roll, Lucas consoles her and they start a romance. If, however, the luck roll succeeds, Anna turns towards the investigator for comfort, and then her relationship with Lucas is damaged. Alternatively, if Lucas puts on the mask after the audition, then Anna makes her singing roll with a 75% chance and no penalty. If she succeeds, again, roll a luck roll. If you fail the luck roll, then Anna credits her success to Lucas for believing in her and hiring the manager, Emily something, and then a romance blossoms between them. If the luck roll was successful, then the relationship between the three, Anna, Lucas, and the investigator, is unchanged. And this is possibly the best outcome. because you don't lose either of your two close friends. If she fails her singing role, she doesn't blame Lucas, and she will start a relationship with him if the investigator fails a luck roll. And even if Lucas and Anna start a relationship, because he's wearing the mask at this stage, Lucas will start to get paranoid about whether Anna loves him or loves the mask, and he kind of slips deeper and deeper into madness. On the other hand, if Anna wears the mask after being offered it by Lucas, then a little bit complicated. If the investigator is present and kind of knows about the mask, they can make an opposed social skill roll against Lucas to try and convince her not to wear it. So Lucas is saying, wear it, it'll make your audition great, and the investigator is maybe saying, don't wear it. It's not safe or whatever. There are some details given in the scenario about what kind of reasoning the investigator could use to try and convince her not to wear the mask, such as, no, you have to believe in yourself, or something like that. But really, they're just ideas. Basically, the idea should come from the player. How are they trying to convince her not to do it? It's dangerous. Whatever argument the player wants to use, that's really what you should go with. And of course, it depends on the investigator's relationship with Anna, and to some extent the relationship with Lucas, as to what ideas they will come up with. If the social skill opposed roll fails, the investigator will have one last opportunity to try and grab the mask. And so you'll make an opposed dexterity roll against Anna. So Anna is not convinced, and she's going to put on the mask. Similar to if you tried to take it from Lucas earlier, you will get 2 rounds to do this. A failure in the first round, so if you've lost the opposed dexterity roll, the first round means that Anna managed to prick her finger for blood and maybe rub the inside of it, and then she's going to go and put it on. And a failure in the second round, and again an opposed dexterity roll, will mean that Anna has successfully put on the mask, and then the mask starts kind of like melding with her face, causing a sanity roll. So now, if Anna does the audition wearing the mask, her performance is outstanding and she's offered a spot on the tour immediately. Now she refuses to take off the mask, and gradually she starts to lose her grip on reality, and she becomes increasingly cold towards both the investigator and Lucas. And by the time she leaves for the tour, she wants nothing to do with them in the future. And so this kind of shows the high cost. She achieved her dreams, but the price was losing her 2 closest friends, and also her sanity. If Anna auditions without the mask, roll with a 75% singing skill. But it's altered a little bit. If the investigator convinced her not to wear a mask successfully, then she will get a bonus die for the 75% roll, because she believes in herself. But if the investigator forcefully kept her from wearing the mask, then she will make the singing roll at 75% with a penalty die as she's shaken up by the whole experience. If, whichever way she rolls, if it's successful, then she is grateful to the investigator for showing her that she can do it on her own. And this could start a romance between her and the investigator. If she fails, however, she blames the investigator for ruining her chance, and there's a big problem between them in the relationship then. The other fly in the ointment is Tanaka, Mr. Tanaka. So him and his men could appear kind of at any point here, probably before the audition, sneaking up on the group. A spot hidden will let the investigator notice their arrival, and if the investigator is aware of who they are and what they want, they have one chance now to kind of hand over the mask without an incident. Although you still could have Mr. Tanaka and his men attack later to kind of tie up all the loose ends. If the spot hidden is failed, then Tanaka's men have orders to grab whoever they think has the mask. And this will probably be Lucas. They think Lucas has the mask, unless the investigator has gone to Professor Nienart and Nienart has outed them to Mr. Tanaka. Alternatively, if you wanted, especially if both Lucas and the investigator are in love with Anna, Tanaka's men might decide to kidnap Anna to then convince whoever has the mask to hand it over. So depending on what happens, Anna may have to go on stage pretty shaken, or she might even miss her opportunity if she was kidnapped. And Nancy Turner is only in town tonight. So this is her only chance, and she won't get another big chance like this again. So if she fails to get the position on the tour, either by failing her role, as she was shaken up, or by missing it completely by being kidnapped, she will blame Lucas and the investigator for ruining her life, and she will cut ties with them both. So that is pretty much the end of the scenario. This is a really, really interesting idea, and it's played out quite well. It's probably about as much as you could get into a single session. However, I do think it's not quite as smooth as the first entry in this book. The outcome of the scenario really depends on the relationship between Lucas, the investigator, and Anna. That is great, and I think that character-based and relationship-based scenarios are the best. They allow for really good role-playing. However, I just don't think there's enough build-up to warrant it. Sure, you establish the relationships at the start, and during the scenario there might be some conflict between you and Lucas over the mask, but there's not really that much interaction with Anna, who's kind of probably the centerpiece of it. Also, at the start of the adventure, they say that you don't need to have a particularly strong relationship or a romantic relationship with either Anna or Lucas, but I do think that would help you achieve the best outcomes, the best role-playing opportunities for that. So I feel like this could have been expanded into a longer scenario, and that would have been better to kind of allow all of these things to play out a little bit more. Especially some of the outcomes kind of happen into the future. So for example, if Lucas is wearing the mask and him and Anna end up together, the kind of like the final outcome of that only happens much later as he kind of gradually slips into madness. Similarly, if Anna wears it and she never takes it off, it's kind of like, over the next few weeks she starts to lose interest, and those scenes haven't kind of been fully fleshed out, so it's just kind of like a little bit of an epilogue. So there's this big build up to it, and then kind of like the actual fallout from it is put into an epilogue. So you could kind of expand those into future scenarios, but yeah, I'm not sure if it really works there. And the other major issue I have with this scenario is that depending on your choices, you could really play this out without much supernatural encounters. I don't expect that to happen, but you could have the players just return the item to Tanaka through Nienart, and then the performance is just kind of like a normal audition. So not having supernatural encounters is not a terrible thing, but it would be a little bit jarring for someone expecting a Call of Cthulhu scenario. Now, I want to just repeat, I love the idea of this scenario, and I think it has a lot of great nuggets in it. And of course, a lot of care has gone into providing you with a lot of different options for whatever you do at each stage. So don't be put off. I still think overall you can have a great time playing this game, but I would definitely recommend Love You to Death over this. Alright, so that is going to do it for this video. It is well after midnight now. It's after 2 a.m. But it's no longer Valentine's Day, but maybe it still is where you are. So happy Valentine's Day, and add a little bit of horror to the holiday by playing one of these love-based horror scenarios. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye.